Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. And a little early, so we'll give people time to show up here and make sure my audio is coming through properly. The training lasts about an hour and a half or so. Basically depends on load times. We do record these trainings, so they're available for you to come back later if you can't stay the whole time. As well as that allows you to send a link to other staff who may also need to be a system admin. You can also go back to previous trainings to see them now, see those as well. We have other videos, several of which I have linked in the description of this video here, and I will talk about those briefly as well. But it looks like we are at 10 o'clock, so let me get set up here to get going. So on the page, you should see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just looking for the blue bar going across the top. There'll be a login link there that will also get you to this page. I do recommend bookmarking this page as it will make it easier to get back here in the future, should you need to. To get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address. This should be in all lowercase letters when you log in. Then we need your password, which is case sensitive, and then your account name, which is typically your business name or organization. Now, if for some reason you don't remember this or you never got the email, down here at the bottom right, there's a Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that. It's going to flip the box over. Right? We still need your email address. That first and foremost. Then down here, right, we need one of these two. Right? We don't need both. So either the account name, right, so business name or organization name, or a phone number that's on the account. And this is a phone number other people call to reach your account, right? Reach your business. Then you would click on Reset Password. This generates an email that's sent to the email address you use for login. It's going to have a link that lets you log in and takes you directly to your user account page. That's where you would change your password. Once you navigate away from that page, the system logs you back out, brings you back to the login page, and you type in your password. You have the option here to click on Remember Me as well, and then click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a fairly regular basis. So when I log in, it's taking me right to the dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system will actually take you to your user account page. Now, you can always get back there by clicking on your name up at the top right. So it has your name and then your company name or account name. Here it pops up. And again, I have my email address. I have my password, which I can click to expand. And then I can change my password. As an admin, I can also get to the account level settings. So I could change things like the time zone and the display language. If you ever need to change the account name, you actually need to send an email into our billing team, billing@virtualpbx.com. They need to know the current account name and the account name you want to change to. And this is because they need to link the account to several different things to make sure everything syncs up properly. Also, on the left, any admin can cancel the account. There'll be a little link here. Again, this is a test account, so it's not showing up here. But over on the left-hand side, there'll be an option here to cancel, and then just follow the on-screen steps. And anytime you can click close up here towards the top right, and then you'll be taken to the dashboard page. Now, one thing I should bring up is on that first login, right, the dash wizard will have pop-ups. So like on your account page, you'll have little pop-ups telling you what certain things are. Likewise, you'll have pop-ups here on the dashboard page, or on the left under when you click on users, or on groups, you'll also have pop-ups on those pages. So speaking of left, right, these are dash features. Most of these are going to show up on every account. The only exception here would be the auto attendance, which is a plan specific feature, but I'll cover that as we go through this. So up here along the top where it says virtual PBX, then you have my name and my account, which I just clicked on to change my password. Many of you to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right, for do not disturb, right, D&D. If you click on it, it goes to the right and turns white. That means it's active, meaning calls won't be offered to your devices, right? They're going to go to voicemail, right? If you click on it to push it back to being basically black and gray, then it's off, meaning calls can ring to you normally. The reason I don't have it here on my user is because my user is part of the call center, or the ACD queues. Those two features don't work well together, so once I was assigned to be a member of the queues, the D&D toggle was removed. All right, next I have this little phone icon. This actually opens up a new tab and takes me to webphone.virtualpbx.net. And this is here because I added a web phone device to my user. Now, a web phone is a VoIP phone, right? So voice over internet protocol, right? Uses the internet connection to make and receive calls. Web phone specifically uses Chrome or Firefox on a computer, so not the mobile versions of those browsers, to make and receive calls. The web phone page has a login, right? So it needs, and it uses your same dash login information, right? Your email address, your password, and your account name. And then after that, you just use your computer to make and receive calls. But it does count as a VoIP device. Little graduation cap icon here. This opens a new tab, takes you to our support pages. Right? So you can see the various guides on features. Some of those guides do include a video, but mostly it's the screenshots and instructions. Then we've got the little chat bubble here. This will open up the chat window so you can speak to a support team member via text. Right? So you're just typing back and forth. Again, typically to walk you through a particular feature or problem you might be running into. The three horizontal line icon here, the menu icon. Sometimes we also call it the hamburger icon. This takes you to other dash features. Will primarily for the training be under here on the dashboard. That's going to be the vast majority of the training time, but we'll touch on these other topics as I get to them. Some of them I have to refer you to videos just because the streaming software has some limitations. And then we have the little arrow icon here to the right, which is your logout icon. Here in the middle, total users, I have 23 users on my account, right? So 23 people who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you have, the higher your bill. That's something to be aware of. Then I have total devices, 39, and then a breakdown, right? So first up, soft phone. Soft phone just means a software application uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So it is a VoIP phone, right? This soft phone bucket includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as any third-party apps. It's just a general, hey, these are all the soft phones you have on your account. In this case, that's 17. Next up, I have cell phone, and I have 11 of them. And that means I've added a cell phone number as a contact number, right? So we can send calls to a cell phone or a landline. One thing to keep in mind is when we send a call to a cell phone or a landline, once you pick up that call there on that device, right? So a call comes to your cell phone, you answer it, you start talking, you're not going to be able to transfer that call to anyone else. Right? That's basically an endpoint. Right? So if you want to receive calls on your cell phone and still be able to transfer calls, you would need to use a soft phone app on your cell phone. Right, next up, web phone, Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Right, and I've got 6 or 8 of those. No, 6. Can't read today. And then here I have SIP phone. This is a physical device, right? So it's a piece of hardware, connects via Ethernet cable, typically, and power, makes and receive calls via your internet connection, right? So SIP is a subtype of VoIP phone, right? So there are technically different other or many different protocols used to send calls over the internet. SIP is one of the primary ones, at least that I've encountered when I do Google searches. So if you're shopping for hardware, you want to make sure it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. If it's some other type of VoIP protocol, it's probably not going to work with us. Or, you have to be good with updating firmware and whatnot. Unregistered devices, this means that 2 of my devices I have turned off, right? So I've gone to my devices tab over here on the left, and then click the toggle to turn a device off, right? So basically, I'm not using it right now for whatever reasons. Total numbers, I have 34 phone numbers, right? These are customer-facing phone numbers, right? So people can call these numbers and hopefully reach me, right, in some fashion. Now, I have a breakdown here. So first up, I have assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers is a number in use, right? So someone can call those numbers and speak to someone or leave a voicemail or send a fax or join a conference, right? Spare number counts towards your allotment of phone numbers on your plan, right? So you have some number, some total number of phone numbers included as part of your monthly plan price. And spare numbers count towards that allotment. Now, spare number, you're not using it right now for whatever reasons, right? Like you just added numbers because you got 10 in a sequence and you're like, well, I'm not using the last 5 yet, but I wanted all these numbers in a sequence because that looks neat, right? Or you're expanding into a new market, has a new area code. You're like, oh, let me get the number ahead of time so I can start making the marketing materials for it ahead of time. All right, next breakdown here is USD ID and US toll free. US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? 1-800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. You can have international phone numbers, and if you're interested in doing so, you would want to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if that's possible and what, if any, additional requirements there are. Those requirements come from the country in question. That's not something we control. Conference bridges. This means I have enabled conferencing on 8 of my users. Right. That means they can host or moderate a conference. Now, any staff can join a conference as a participant, right? But these 8 people, they're the ones who run it, right? What have you. Over here towards the top right, I have my main number box, right? So I've got, what is that, 6 numbers here. So these 6 numbers, they all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location. They're all playing the same main greeting. You can obviously have multiple numbers here or just one. If you decide not to have any, you want to start off that way. Right? It's a little bit more difficult to have a main number in place and then remove it. Right? If you just start off with none, it's a little bit easier in terms of how the system works. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same conference rooms. Right? But this is the phone number everyone dials to join a conference. That includes your staff members. Right? But your clients, your vendors, your staff, all dial this number. Then they'll be prompted to enter a conference room number, which matches the extension number, and then the PIN number. Right? And there'll be a PIN number for the participants and a separate PIN number for the moderators. The fax box number, this is your main inbound fax number. You can only have the one main fax box number. You can also edit your fax box so that way you can enable outbound faxing for your staff. Sending out a fax, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account for that. You just need to use your email address you use for login. Create an email like you normally do. In the to field, put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and the phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and you would add your account realm, which is right down here. And then you would need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. Only one attachment per email. The system does not look at the subject line, nor does it look at the body. Right? So anything you type there, not getting transmitted. The system only looks at the PDF, the to field, and the from field. Right? And it's only sending out the attachment from the PDF or TIFF file. It does take time for a fax to go through. Right? It's, even though you started off as an email, eventually it does have to get converted into a fax, and that just takes time. All right, we'll skip back up here. Company directory, I have 2 links, right? One is CSV and the other softphone. These are both actually CSV files. They just download to your computer. The CSV file, basically so you can look at it, it'll have everyone's names, their extension numbers, and their devices. The softphone CSV file, that's for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application. i.e., if you're using our app on a Windows or Mac PC, you would download this file, upload it to the VirtualPBX soft phone on your computer. This will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account, right? So that's the only device everyone is using on your account with us. Then you have a way to see presence. And you can say, oh, Bob's on a call. I'll wait to give him a call to talk about our mutual customer. Now, if you have people using multiple devices, then it's less useful, right? Because then you can only see what they're doing with their soft phone. You don't know if they're using their cell phone or if calls came in and they picked up on their Yealink phone. The VirtualPBX store, when you click on this, it'll open up a new tab, take you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you could order your VoIP phones from us if you don't want to go to like Amazon or CDW or what have you. You can also buy routers, among other things. The account realm, well, I already touched on one use, right? That's for sending out faxes. The other thing it's used for is for a third-party soft phone. So if you want to use someone else's soft phone application, you can do so. One of the 3 pieces of information you need and that you'll get from us is the account realm. Typically, that's like the server or proxy server on the relevant software. Right. Now we're going back up here to the top where it says Sandbox Training. To the right of that, it says Caller ID. When you click on that, opens up a big old box for company caller ID. This first section here, it's a pull down. It doesn't work on my streaming software, so I apologize. But you can select any of your phone numbers, any of your main phone numbers, right? So this box of 6 numbers over here to the right, I can select any one of those to be my main or primary phone number, right? So in this case, that's this 424 number. Now, I have the option here for company caller ID name, excuse me. In this box here to the right of that, I can enter up to 15 characters. Now it will count spaces and special characters. And that will get transmitted as part of your outbound caller ID with this phone number up top, right? So your VoIP phones, by default, will use this 424 phone number as your outbound caller ID. And if you submit information here, we'll also send this text as part of that. Completely optional. You don't have to do it. And I'll get back to that shortly. Down here, company emergency information, or E911, wants a North American address. For our Canadian customers, where it says zip code, that's where you would put your postal code. And then your state, you would use your 2-character province abbreviation. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, if you entered information in the company caller ID name or CNAME field, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. Now, so when you make an outbound call with your VoIP phone, we send this phone number. We'll send whatever information you entered in this box here, right? And your call will go through several carriers before it reaches the destination phone number. If one of those carriers doesn't support CNAME, well, that's the company name, right? That information doesn't reach your destination at all, right? They only get the phone number. The receiving carrier, right? That last carrier, they get final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. So ideally, right, they see the phone number that we're sending and the caller ID name information we're sending, and they just pass it through. But they have the option to see that information and say, no, we're not taking your name information. We'll look up our own database for this phone number and use that information instead, and then send that to the destination phone number. Or they can say, we don't care. We're just sending the phone number only. And that last scenario is typically what the cell phone carriers do. Right, so like my cell phone carrier, they want to charge me $10 a month in order to have CNAME information show up on all calls to my cell phone. I personally feel like I give them enough money, so I chose not to do that. And I know several other carriers do similar kinds of pricing in terms of having that feature show up. So when you make test calls to cell phones, odds are your company name information will not show up. When you're done here, don't forget to click on Save Changes. Next up, we have hold music. So hold music on your Dash account is defined as after a call has come through to your system and reached a user's VoIP phone. Right? They've picked up that call. answered it, and then press hold on their VoIP phone, that's when this hold music file will play. You can upload your own media files. It will play back .wav, .wav, or .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. Now, I recommend that you record in mono, so that gives you some more duration of your hold music. A 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. All right, so you would click upload here, and then you would click browse to find the file on your computer, hit the up arrow icon, and then click on save changes. This is also a pull down, which will show you any media files you already have on the account. So if you want to reuse something, you have a holiday hold music versus a regular hold music, you can do that. All right, hours is actually part of main number, and in terms of configuration, it helps to have users and groups in place before you configure your main number. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to users next. So over here on the left, I click on users. This takes me to my users page. So up here it says I have 23 users, which matches what's on the dashboard. You see here I have their name. If they have the little great person icon here, that means they're a standard user. They have very limited access. Like basically, they can get to their user portal, which means they can check their voicemail. They can see their call history. If they have conferencing or their own fax box, they can cover that as well. But that's really about it. Or, oh, they can also get to the call center if you assign them to the call queues if you're making use of that feature. The little blue suit icon, these are your system admins. As you can tell, I have several system admins on this account, which means you can as well. Right? They can make all the changes we're talking about here. Up here at the top, you click on Add User, and you basically fill out the form, right? First name, last name, it just wants some sort of text. Big one here, though, is the email address used for login. That needs to be unique for each user. You cannot reuse an email address for several people. This email address is what the system uses to communicate with the user, right? So where like password reset notifications or voicemail notifications. Then you have the password. You create a password for the user. Then you have the main extension number. You can type, the system will suggest an extension number. So like if you started off with your first extension with extension 1000, in this case, like this one here, it's saying the next available one is 1020. I can type in whatever I want and change it. All right, here, by default, this is checked. It's create a voicemail box for the user. This means once you click on create user, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. So like if you create a user, you add a VoIP phone to that user, get it registered, they can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 and click send. That logs them into their voicemail box that you just created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a voicemail box PIN number, as well as then walking them through creating their voicemail box greeting. So then they're basically all set up. Include in the company directory, you put a check mark here to put them in the directory, or uncheck it or leave it unchecked to not. You can always change this later. Send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those voicemail notifications or password resets to go to a different email address than the one you've set up for login, then you click on this box here and put that separate email address here. And then here, last one, right? Send credentials to the user. I personally think you should check this. But basically what happens is when you click on create user, the system will automatically send them an email saying, welcome to VirtualPBX Dash, here's your login information, blah, blah, blah. Right? If you need to add multiple, you click on create user and add another. All right. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. It's going to expand out their information here, right? So you can always change their name if you need to. Here is where you would change someone else's credentials, right? Not your own. Right? You would just click on that. So you can change their email address. You can change their password. You have to retype it. You also have the option here to have the system send them the password reset email. and then click on Save Changes. Here, you can change the voicemail box PIN number. Just put in 4 digits and then Save Changes. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here, little person icon. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin to a user. A little clock icon. This allows you to change the time zone for the user. Flag icon lets you change the display language. Right, so what the web pages display, what language they use, French, German, Russian, or English. Ringing timeout, the default is 20 seconds. If you have someone who's only using a cell phone device, then you'd want to change it to like 30 or in this case 40 seconds. It simply takes more time to route a call to a cell phone than it does to say a landline or a web phone. Oh, I guess one thing I should point out, if you just signed up with us, right, and you come to the users page, your user will not have an extension assigned to it by default. So what you would want to do is under the extensions tab, click on it, and then click on add an extension number, and then enter the extension number you want to use, and then click on save changes. It should also give you the option to make it your main extension number when you first do that. And the reason you would want to do that is that way you can then set up your voicemail box on your user. And the reason the system doesn't assign you an extension number is to give you the option of the versatility that have your numbering scheme the way you want it. Numbers. Users can have their own phone numbers. This is the number that goes directly to the user, right? Doesn't get to anybody else. It will ring their devices and go to their voicemail. Now, this phone number does not have hours of operation, right? So this phone number is available 24/7. So if someone has their personal cell phone as a device on their user, right, they can get calls at 2 in the morning. Speaking of devices, we have the device tab. So here you can add either from, oh wait, I should go back, sorry. Phone numbers, right? Down here, you can add from spare or buy new, right? So add from spare means you have a spare number and you're going to use it here. That's also how you would reuse a phone number, right? Because basically, if you want Aaron here to no longer have this 323 number, I would click unassign and then save changes. That number then becomes a spare number. Then I can come back here and click on add from spare and say, oh, I have these other numbers I can use instead. Click on the box, click on add selected, and then save changes, and then he has a different number. All right, by numbers, you have your option for local and toll-free. Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. And you'll eventually get a list of numbers. Now, this list of numbers is a dynamic list, meaning you're technically competing with other people in real time. Most of the time, that's not an issue. Only time I've ever had it come up as a problem is someone clicked add and then walked away. Right? They got called into a meeting because their boss said, hey, get in here now. I go, okay. Then you come back, let's say it's an hour later or whatever, try to click on by numbers. Someone else took that number in that time that you were away from your desk. All right, so once you add a number, and you can add multiple, you want to click on by numbers to complete the process. Right, so that way someone doesn't take a number that you wanted. The system goes through, makes sure the number was truly available, and activates it, and here you see it on the account, and then you would click on Save Changes. And I can go back up here, and I can unassign it because it doesn't really need to have multiple numbers. All right, so devices. Right down here. So you can add from spare devices, meaning you're reusing devices, or you can go click on new device. So first up, SIP phone. This is that piece of physical hardware, right? Sits on a desk, connected via Ethernet. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them, like Yealink, have a lot of models. Some of them only have a few. So you want to find the make and model of the phone that you're working with. And then you need to give it a name, right? Bob's phone, break room phone, what have you. Then we need the MAC address. This is unique to each device, right? Usually a sticker on the back. If the phone's plugged in, you can usually find this information under its status settings or sometimes basic settings, right? And you would just enter the information here. Then you click on create device, right? Then you would click on save changes. Go down to Bob here because he actually has a physical phone. So once you do that, you want to come back and click on the device, go to advanced, and then select miscellaneous. And where it says allow reprovision, click unlock, save changes, and you want to click save changes here. Now, within our dashboard here, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface. Typically, that means getting the IP address of the phone, putting that IP address in the address bar of a computer that's on the same network as that phone, and then log into the phone's web user interface. You need to actually give it the phone a URL. Basically, you're telling it, hey, go here to get your config file. Now, for the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to our support pages, right? So click on the little graduation cap there, and you want to look for the device called auto provisioning phones, or you can just do a search for auto provisioning. That will give you the information specific to each manufacturer. It's going to have screenshots so you know what to look for. And then you can basically follow the instructions to get that phone auto provisioned. The other thing here under device advanced, audio for a physical phone. I don't know what, there it goes. You want to make sure you have G711A and G711U. Right. The VirtualPBX soft phone app uses Opus, which is this one here. Right. You don't need it on a physical phone. Opus is generally designed for software. And I want to see what else. I'll touch on some of these others as we get to the devices tab. All right. So next up, cell phone. Actually, here we can go to Bob again. So here you would click on cell phone, right? This creates a little box. I'll click on Bob's here, right? So you give it a name. And then here you put +1 area code and phone number, just like you see here. Click on save changes or create device and then save changes. Oops. And right like this. Hold on, let's get that proper. All right. So under advanced options, this is the default settings for a cell phone or landline. So as I mentioned before, when a call gets to a cell phone or landline, right, you're not able to transfer that call. It only can go here. Now, and what happens is, you know, say your cell phone rings, you pick up, you answer it. Well, when you first pick up, the system says, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. That's great if you're actually a person taking the call. Let's say, for instance, you actually contracted out with another company to handle your after-hours calls. I said, yeah, just send your after-hours calls to this phone number. We'll handle the calls for you. Typically, that's an automated answering service of some sort, at least initially. So we send the call, right? You would add it as a cell phone device or a landline. You would have these default settings. We send the calls to that phone number. If that automated answering service doesn't press 1, the call doesn't connect. That can cause a problem and lead to some frustration. So you would come here and put a check mark here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So what that does is you're no longer required to press 1 to accept the call. Right? We send the call to the phone number, we hear that pickup tone, and we connect the call. No need to press 1. Great for automated answering service, and that's what's basically it's designed for. If you have this setting set up on your personal cell phone, what can happen is the amount caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box versus the system voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that can come up here is to keep original caller ID. So when the call comes in, right, on your cell phone, you would see, say, so customer Mary is calling, you would see customer Mary's phone number show up on your cell phone, right? And if you've been getting a lot of robodialers, you're like, okay, I'm letting it go to voicemail. Then you may or may not be able to reconnect with customer Mary. So to help avoid that, you can uncheck this, right? Uncheck keep original caller ID. So now when the call comes to your cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, go back to the dashboard real quick here, you would see your main phone number. Right? So hopefully that's a number you would recognize. You're, oh, work call. Let me take this, assuming you're not, in the middle of something important like driving. All right. Next up, soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone, you're going to get this warning message. Right? I do advise that you read it at least once, if not a couple of times. Basically, it's saying, due to wireless VoIP technology, if you dial 911 from a soft phone, it's possible you're not at the correct location that is set up for the soft phone. So emergency services could go to the wrong spot. Go ahead and click close. Now you're going to get a big old box here. Now, by default, the system is setting you up to add a third-party soft phone. Right? So you're using someone else's application. Right? So you would give it a name. You would copy and paste the SIP username. If you click on the SIP password box, you can copy and paste that. And then here's your account realm. Right? Those are 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision a third-party soft phone app. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, oops, what happened here? Oh, oops. All right, let's try that again. Soft phone, warning message. There. So if you want to use a VirtualPBX soft phone app, what you should see here is this use third-party application. Kind of grayed out, might be hard to see on YouTube, but you click on that, it's going to flip it, and now it says use VirtualPBX application. So then you just give it a name up here, you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, the system sends this user an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It has their login information for the soft phone app, as well as download links. So if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, right, your users will have a login to log into their Dash account, right, the web page. They'll have a separate login for the Dash for the soft phone using the app. Web phone, I also find easier to add directly to a user. The web phone uses your Dash login information, so it does need to be assigned to a user. You just need to give it a name. Then you click on create device. Right, click on create device, and then click on save changes. So now the next time Ariel logs in, they'll see the web phone link up here. They can also just go directly to webphone.virtualpbx.net and log in directly that way using their same Dash login information. Next up, we have user features. Caller ID number, this will only be usable for users that have their own phone number, right? But you click on it, you click enable, you select one phone number that they have, and then click on save changes. What this does is that means whenever Aaron here makes an outbound call, his phone number will show up as this 323 phone number instead of the 424 number that we have set up under the main number. Right, so like he's in charge of the 323 area code region. Right, if I disable this and click on Save Changes, now whenever Aaron makes an outbound call from his VoIP phones, it's going to be the main number under the dashboard page. Virtual text application, this is a new feature. This allows for texting. If you don't see this as a feature on your account, you need to contact our services team. They're the ones who enable this feature on accounts. They'll probably also be talking to you about SMS registration, which is a relatively new thing for telecom. So here you select a phone number on the account. It could be a number that's assigned to the user. It could be one of your main numbers or a number that you have on an auto attendant. You then click on Save Changes. They'll get an email welcoming them to virtual text. It can have its own login, right? So potentially Aaron here has 3 pieces of login information, right? One for his Dash account, one for his soft phone, and a third one for virtual text. You can use virtual text via the website. So go on in your browser's address bar, type in virtualtext.app, click enter, and you can log in that way. You can also download an app directly to your cell phone, and then you can text numbers. The main advantage of virtual text is you can share numbers among your staff. So that way, for like your main number, you would share that among your staff. So that way you have multiple people who can keep track of texts that are coming in and out to your customers. Voicemail box. You have to have an extension number in order to enable this. Excuse me. But by default, this is the setup. Transcription. This is the system listening to the voicemail message and typing it out in the email notification. And this is to its best of its ability, right? If people are not speaking into their microphones or they have a bad microphone that picks up lots of background noise, it's going to impact transcription quality. By default, the system will send voicemail to email, and that just means, hey, when a voicemail is left, the user gets an email saying, you have a new voicemail, gives the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the extension number involved, and we'll have an MP3 attachment. Right, so they can just double click on it and listen to the voicemail directly from their email. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. So if they only check via the email, right, they're not actually deleting it from their voicemail box. Now, this default setup, there's 2 more ways you can check voicemail, right? Not just email, right? That's the default way here. But you can call into your main number from any phone, right? When you hear that main greeting, you hit *97. The system will ask you for your voicemail box number and your PIN number, and then you can listen to voicemails over the phone. You can delete them over the phone, right? Likewise, from a VoIP phone, right? So if Aaron here picks up his VoIP phone, dial *98, that logs him directly into his voicemail box. He still asked for his PIN number, but then he can listen to his voicemails over his phone and delete them that way. The other way to check is via login to dash.virtualpbx.com, right, the website. Under the user portal, it defaults you to your voicemail box, so you can listen to them directly in your browser and delete them there. If you have a voicemail box that gets too busy, right? Let's say you have like a main voicemail box set up and it just keeps getting hammered for whatever reasons, then you may want to do this one here, which is delete after notification, right? So basically, once the email gets sent out, the system deletes the voicemail box from the system, or the voicemail, excuse me, from the system, so that way the voicemail box doesn't get full, right? So people can keep leaving messages. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. You click to enable. And then here, right, these devices are grayed out. You have to uncheck them in order to give them ring time, right? Then you click and drag little green bars to the right. You can click distribute. You can click and drag these to change the order and then distribute again. So that way it rings the soft phone and then my cell phone, for example. Up here, this is a timestamp, so I can change the total ring time down and then click distribute again. and then click on Save Changes. Fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box, right? You would click to enable, and then you have the option of using a spare number, buying a new number, or assigning a new extension. I recommend using a phone number. When you use a phone number, that means this person can send and receive faxes. If you use an extension number, they can only ever receive a fax, and even then, you potentially limit who can send them a fax. Right? For like e-fax services, right? Electronic fax services, at least the ones I've played with so far, they only allow you to send faxes to a phone number. They don't have anything to add an extension number after the phone number. Right? And even for your analog fax users, they have to know how to either use their fax machine, right? In other words, like enter the phone number and then like comma, comma, or pound, pound, and then the extension number, or they're listening in, right? So they call the main number, they hear the greeting, they enter the extension number, and then they click send fax. Right? Just extra layers of complication versus if you just use a phone number. But whichever you choose, after you select the phone number, for example, then you click on Save Changes. And this means Aaron here has his own fax box, right? So he can send and receive directly to himself. Well, he wouldn't send to himself, but he can send out directly from himself, and then he can receive faxes directly, right? If that's part of his core job. Conference Bridge, click on here. You click to enable. And the only thing you really need to set up is right here, is the personal PIN number. This is something the user can change on their own via their user portal. The enable video conferencing, that's for your staff, right? Anyone outside of your system, right, who's not a user on your Dash account will not be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your users can turn call forwarding off or on their own. Failover mode is something you would have to set up for them. Failover mode is basically this user has a VoIP phone, right? Call comes in just as their VoIP phone becomes unregistered for whatever reason, right? Dog ran by, pulled out the cable. But instead of missing the call or having the call go to voicemail, with failover mode enabled, you instead send calls to a phone number you designated, like the user's cell phone number. So that way, call comes in, VoIP phone's not working, but then the system automatically forwards to his cell phone. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, if you added a cell phone as a device on the user, then you don't really need call forwarding, right? Because it's a secondary device already there. All right, customize call recording. So by default, when you enable it, it looks like this. Yeah, you have to tell the system what kind of calls are we recording. Right? Inbound internal coworker call, right? So Bob called Aaron. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron. Outbound internal, right? Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external, Aaron called customer Mary. We usually see something like this or all four. Whichever you choose, you just click on Save Changes. Now, your account includes some amount of data storage based on your plan. So if you just signed up first, just check the pricing page. It'll be listed there. Otherwise, you would want to talk to our services team. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you definitely want to talk to our services team about AWS storage and integration. Right? On our side, we turn on AWS integration. You have to have an AWS account to link to. But basically, what we're doing is we turn on AWS integration. That allows you to link your AWS account to your Dash account, so that way your call recordings are stored via AWS, which, again, for heavy call volume, is going to be more cost effective. Music on hold, you can choose to have users have their own hold music if you want them to. Upload a file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. Click the up arrow icon, or click browse to find the file, click the up arrow icon. After finish saving, then click on Save Changes. Do not disturb. When you click enable, click on Save Changes. That means calls to this user are going to voicemail. Right, their phones will not ring. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you click enable, you give it a hot desk ID and a PIN number if you want them to have one, and then save changes. Hot desking is for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling, right? Where people might only be in a couple days a week, so you don't have to have a desk for everybody. So they share a desk. Right? So Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the phone, the VoIP phone, hits *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will ask him for his hot desk ID. He enters that. Now calls will go to that are people where calls for Aaron will then ring to the phone he's sitting at. All right, so then he goes about his workday. End of the workday, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time he comes in the office, let's say that's Thursday. Angela's already sitting at desk number 2. He says hello. He sits down at desk number 5. Same thing. Picks up the phone, *11, enters his hot desk ID. Now calls that are coming to him go to that phone and until he turns it off. All right. So once you have users, you can also then create groups. Not sure why I got these extra little floaties here. Groups are departments, right? Designed so you can send calls to multiple people. Whether you want them to ring at the same time or in order, that's up to you. Sometimes this is also referred to as hunt groups or ring groups. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name, and you need to give it an extension number. Once you've done that, you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then you click on Create Group. Once the group's created, it will show up here. You can click on the name. Right? You can always change the name at any time. Right? Then you've got group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to the group members. Right? So we'll get little arrows here so you can increase or decrease that as needed. Down here at the bottom left, you can delete a group if you no longer need it. Otherwise, you click on Save Changes. The next box over here is the members box. Right? You see all the staff members that you've assigned to this group and how we're offering calls to them. So this setup is referred to as blast ringing or ring all. Right? So I'm ringing everybody at the same time, and in this case, for the same amount of time. Right? So basically, whoever answers the call first gets the call. Now, what can happen here, right, is Bob and Aaron can both be reaching for the phone at the same time. Only one of them is going to get the call, and so the other one will think they've answered it and then have dead air. So that's something to keep aware for anything with ring all. Now, as long as someone got the call, not a big deal, but it can be a little disconcerting for the staff member who had dead air. Like, wait, does someone get it? Right? So now, along the top here, you have timestamps like we had under the Follow Me feature, right? So you can change the time and enter. You can click Distribute, right? So now you're ringing in this order. Now, a call that comes in to a group will always ring in this order. It does not skip anybody, right? So first call comes in, Bob answers it, right? He's helping the customer. Second call comes in, it still offers it to Bob for 13 seconds, right? After that, then it goes to Aaron, right? So now Bob and Aaron are on a call. Third call comes in. That third caller has to wait, what's that, 24 seconds, 26 seconds? Before it rings to David, etc. So now these are sliders. So even after I click distribute, right, I can increase the sliders like this. So that way those later callers aren't on hold as long. Another thing to keep in mind is for your staff members with multiple devices who you assign to a group, the calls from the group will ring all of their devices. I cannot speak today. I'm sorry. Right. So calls from the group ignore the user feature Follow Me. Right. So like if you, let's say Bob's got 5 phones and you put 2 of them on Do Not Ring, and you say, okay, ring his Yealing phone first, then his soft phone, and then his cell phone. But if he gets a call from the group, all 5 of his devices will ring. Now, that's one way he knows it's a group call versus a call going right to his extension number, but that's something to be aware of. If I need to change the order, right, I click and drag people around. I click distribute. So now Orlando's first. down here, I can add more users. So let's say it's a busy day or a busy week. So we can add Ariel here and Jan and Jean. Now they get added to the front, right? But I can click distribute if I want to. And then I can put them all for blast ringing or some such. And then when you're done, click on Save Changes. Likewise, if you want to remove someone, you just click on the little remove button there. But once you're done, click on Save Changes. Right. Groups can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Right. You just click on Add Extension, and you can have a second extension. Groups can also have phone numbers. Right. You can either add from spare or buy new. Just like under users, these phone numbers on a group work 24/7. Right. There's no off hours. And then we have group features. First up is ring back. So call comes into a group. Right. Starts ringing your staff members' phones. Right. They start to ring. That ringing sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, ring back. If you don't want that ringing sound to be playing, you can instead enable the ringback feature, upload an MP3 or .wav file recorded in mono, click on Save Changes. So in this case, when people call this group, they're going to hear, don't worry, be happy. Next action, to me, the most important group feature. You turn it, click to enable. What do you want the system to forward the call to if no one picks up? You have this pull down. You can send them back to your main menu. You can send it to an advanced call flow, which is if you have some special configuration or auto attendance. Call queues if you're making use of the queue features. Specific device, you can send it to another green group. You can send it to a specific person, right, another user. Most common that we see, though, is sending it to a voicemail box. So in this case, we'll send it to the front desk voicemail box and then Save Changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable this, that means, and click on Save Changes, that means your staff members can make use of call forwarding. If you have multiple devices on your users that includes a cell phone, you don't really need to enable this. Caller ID prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Basically gives them a heads up about the kind of call they're getting. Use one or the other, don't use both because that can be very confusing. And then click on Save Changes. All right, so now you've got groups, you've got users. Let's go to main number. Actually, let me close this and let me see if I can. Nope, still has those. All right, so up here at the top, you have your main company numbers, shows all your numbers. If you don't want to use one as a main number any longer, you can click unassign next to it. Now, whenever you unassign a number or a device for that matter, you're not deleting it. You're just removing it from its current location. All right, down here, you can add from spare by new if you want to add different numbers in. And again, it's the same process as before. I don't know if I covered this under groups or users. You have this little gear icon next to each of the phone numbers. So you can update the caller ID for each number, right? So the outbound caller ID name, 15 characters, including spaces and special characters, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME, which I do recommend just to, again, it tells your staff members who's calling, right? Next up, we have E911. Each phone number can have its own individual E911 address. So that way you can then have a bunch of different addresses, right, for each of your phone numbers, which you can then associate with your VoIP phones, specific for E911 purposes. Prepend VoIP phone feature, you can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Once you have phone numbers in place, you can have office hour strategy, 24-hour open office, right? You're open 24/7. Otherwise, you have custom office hours, and you choose for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of the day, and then choose your open hours in 24-hour or military time. you also have the option here to say you're closed for lunch. That means your system goes into lunch mode at the same time for each of your days that you're open. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Office holidays, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark in front of the box. And then over here to the right, click on Add Holiday. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Clicking on any one of these will create a new row. Single day, like I have here for New Year's Day, you give it a name, month, and the date, save changes. Right, date range, like for the Christmas holiday. Right, name, start date, end date, save changes. There's no year indicator, so as a precaution, we recommend against a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Honestly, I haven't seen that cause a problem recently and for years, but just as a precaution, we recommend against that. Advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving, right? Choose, give it a name, choose the month, choose 1st through 5th or last, and then the day of the week. Then click on Save Changes. If you want to remove a holiday, click on the little trash icon, and then Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So for the 5 main numbers I have, during my open hours, how do I want my calls to route? During my after hours, how do I want my calls to route? And during holidays, how am I dealing with calls? These first 3 options down here, right? So virtual receptionist, in this case, it looks like directory, etc. So the first 3 boxes down here show up on all accounts. The 4th one only shows up if you have an account with multiple auto attendants and you made one of those other attendants available in main menu, or you had some kind of specialized call flow set up with our services team. Anyway, so calls come in, they go to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. You click on that virtual receptionist, get a big old box here. On the left is your main menu. These are what the buttons people press on their phones to navigate through your phone system. All right, so you click on Add Route here, creates a new row, and you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And then you tell it where do you want it to go. Since I already have a default action, I will remove this. But here, right, PBX directory users, right, you have to have users in place to be able to have multiple people to choose from. Same would apply to groups or queues. You can send it to a specific device, to someone's phone. The main caveat with sending it to a specific device is it should have its own built-in voicemail in case no one's there to pick up. Otherwise, you might have someone get irritated. You can also have it go to a voicemail box, and then lastly, a media file. Once the media file is done playing, the call ends. So you might do this for like hours of operation or directions. Then over here on the left, you have your greeting options. Oops, sorry, on the right, greetings options. First up is text-to-speech. This is a free option to computerize a robotic voice. You would type in what you want the greeting to say. You would click Update, Save, and then Save Changes. The system will read it off. Now, in this box here, you can enter up to 250 characters. It does not count spaces. You can sometimes go over 250 characters, right? But it's not words, it's characters. But 250 works consistently. The downside of the text-to-speech greeting is that the system names the file for you, and it reuses the same names. So in this case, it's going to be main open hours menu TTS, right? Because I'm in my main menu, right? And during my open hours, and it's text-to-speech, right? So like if I type this in and said, oh, I missed something, and I type in something else, I will then have 2 files called main open hours menu TTS. My recommendation is if you start with a text-to-speech greeting, which makes a lot of sense, right? If you've never used a PBX system, you're a startup, or you're just not sure how you want things to flow yet, that's fine. But once you create your text-to-speech greeting, we'll click close here. On the left-hand side over here, click on greetings. You can go there to rename the file so it's something you can recognize. Because basically from some of the pull downs, you'll only see main open menu TTS, and then there might be 3 or 5 or however many you created. You won't know which one is which. You can upload your own file. Click on the little browse button there to find the file on your computer. Click update, save and save changes. Again, .wave.mp3 recorded in mono. Choose from an existing recording. Right, this is a pull down. It shows all your existing media files: main greetings, hold music files, voicemail greetings. So this is again why you would want files that have a name you can recognize. You can record it over the phone. Now, when the system says this, right, pick a phone, register to the account, that means pick up a VoIP phone on the account. This was a security feature, so that way, basically, hey, it's a registered phone, it's part of the account, right? The system knows, oh, it's a safe phone. So you can then call your main number, enter in the PIN number, and record your phone, or record your greeting over the phone. So if you just signed up with us and you assigned a main number, if you called it right away, you would get a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been created yet. The system will prompt you for the PIN number. Right? You would enter it, and then you can record it over the phone. If, let's say, you started off with a text-to-speech greeting just to get going, and then you came back and you're like, yeah, that's not working for me, you can still enter the PIN number when you hear that main greeting play. And then the system will walk you through recording it over the phone. Now, in that first scenario, right, brand new, there's no recording in place, the system will name the file for you. It's typically an alphanumeric string, and I think it says, like, I forget what the file, it's a recording as the source. If you have a greeting file in place, so let's say you have a main open hours menu TTS file plan, you called in, you enter the PIN number here, it overwrites the existing content and reuses the file name, right? So main open hours menu TTS, it's going to have your voice on it instead, and it's going to, instead of the source being TTS, it's going to be recording. Now, if you want to record from your cell phone or landline, right? Let's say you haven't gotten your VoIP phone in yet. You can do that. So first, you would go to settings, and then down here, it says allow outside recording, turn that on. Right? Then you need to click on save and save changes. So now you can call into your main number from a cell phone or landline and either hear that message to enter the PIN number or hear your existing main greeting and enter the PIN number. But then you can record it over the phone. We do recommend that once you're done, that you come back and turn that back off, right? Just wait someone doesn't randomly figure out your PIN number and change your main greeting on you. Professional recording services, when you click on order, this opens up a new tab, takes you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a greeting from them and their professional voice actors and actresses. They have like 100 actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly via credit card. They send you the completed file via email. So then you come here to upload your own file. All right, now we're under settings. Number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so what I'm saying here is that I set this to 1. So my inbound caller has 2 attempts to get a valid option. Right, so they call in, they enter 5 after hearing the main greeting. That's not a valid menu option. It's not a valid extension number. The system will then play the greeting a second time. Hopefully they would enter a correct option, but if they don't, in this case, they would be sent to my default action, which sends them to my voicemail box. If I don't have a default action, then the call would end. Right? The system would say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for an additional button press. Right? So that caller calls in, presses 5. Well, the system's going to wait for 5 seconds. This is, oh, they meant extension 5 or menu option 5, which doesn't exist. Retry option. Right? Enter, say they enter 2. The system will still wait for 5 seconds to make sure they're not entering like 255 or something like that. But once that's over, then it would transfer to my ring group here. Allow dialing extensions by default. This is on, and this just means that if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only press my menu options. Right? If they enter an extension number, system treats it as an invalid and takes up a retry option. And then lastly, we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if you don't want that message to play, saying we did not recognize your entry, then you would turn this on. So any changes you make to the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you click save, and then save changes here, right? You're clicking save twice. Now the second option here is primarily designed as a live operator answer, right? It's giving someone or several someones an opportunity to answer the call. If they're not able to pick up, then the system will send the caller to the virtual receptionist. So this is my after hours. I'm having calls come in and not having it go to my front desk group. This is a pull down so I can send it to a specific person. Right? So Boz, my after hours guy, I can have it go right to him. If he isn't able to go pick up, etc., it would go to the virtual receptionist. If I scroll down further, I can send it to one of my call queues if I'm making use of that feature. I can choose a different group. I can choose a specific phone, right? So if you have like a cell phone for after hours duties and that gets passed around among your staff, then you can just use that device name instead. And then lastly, you have your virtual receptionist. This is my after hours receptionist. So I have different menu options here. I should have a different greeting in place. All right, you can have different settings here as well. Holidays, in this case, I'm using this third option here where I'm playing a media file and then I'm sending them to a voicemail box. Now, again, this pull down, I can send it to a user, I can send it to a group, a queue, a specific device, etc. There's an additional option here though at the very bottom where it says skip the voicemail. And then this second pull down is only voicemail boxes, right? So you're saying, hey, during the holidays, we're just sending everyone to voicemail and just being done with it. Conference room numbers, you can have multiple, right? Add from spare, buy new. You have a custom greeting here, which is text to speech. You click to enable, you type in the greeting, click on save. Even if I leave that disabled, right? When I call the conference number, the system says, welcome to the conference, and then prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. That's why I don't have the option to add more. But once you do, you can edit the fax box. First up, the inbound notification email, you enter in an email address here, or several, just separate with a comma, no spaces. Basically, every time you get an inbound fax, you get an email, it says you have a new fax, gives you the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment. Now, if someone calls your fax box number from, let's say, their cell phone, right? They hear the fax tones and then they hang up. This person gets an email saying that there was a failed fax attempt. They'll have the date, the time, phone numbers involved. There might be enough information in the caller ID information where it says like wireless number. So then you know, oh, that was a misdial. The email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. Primarily designed to put in your company email domain here, or you can put a specific email address. So for instance, here I have at virtualpbx.com, right? So anyone at VirtualPBX that has a virtualpbx.com email address, they can send a fax out from this account, even if they're not a user on the account, right? They just need the proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and the account realm, right? And then a PDF or a TIFF. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So that means it's available on some plans and not others. So if you don't have this option here on the left, you'd want to talk to account services. Now, a couple use cases. One is for submenuing, right? So you want like an English menu and a Spanish menu, right? So when people call your main number, you say, hey, for English, press 1, for Spanish, press 2. You would come here and add attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number, click on create attendant, right? The extension number, your customers are probably never going to know, but your staff members could know. and transfer to the correct attendant, right? So like if someone called me and is speaking Spanish and obviously doesn't speak English and I only understand a little bit of Spanish and you don't want to hear me speak it, uh, I would then transfer to the Spanish auto attendant, for example. Now, once you create an attendant, down here, it starts off as unavailable in main menu. The reason for that is, for instance, if you had several businesses, right? So each business has their own phone numbers and their own greetings, right? So then you wouldn't want them to be in the same menu options as each other. So that's why you would have, this would be the second use case, right? So you leave it unavailable in main menu, but if I click on it, then it's available in main menu, right? So that's what I would do for my Spanish or English greetings or attendance, right? So like Spanish, if I come down here, right, it's available in main menu. So it can be a submenu option. Attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare, buy from new. They can have multiple extension numbers. And then you have the wrench icon here under settings. So you have open hours, after hours, and holidays. So your auto attendants will have the same hours of operation as your main numbers, right? So the holiday schedule that we set up there and the office hours gonna match. But beyond that, virtual receptionist, right? So so like Puchwalk would be a separate business, so it would have its own main greeting, its own menu options, right? Whereas Spanish, right? Again, it's virtual receptionist, so I would put in a Spanish greeting here and then have the menu options go to my Spanish speaking staff members. Right. Devices, this shows your devices on the account. You can add new devices up here at the top. Black means you've turned it off, right? Under the enable column here. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send a call to it. Now, this could be like for a web phone, they haven't logged into it, right? For a physical phone like this one here, right? It could be it's not plugged in. It could be they're having an internet problem, or they could be having some sort of router setting issue. Now, for these VoIP phones, you can click on the wrench icon under Edit. You can check the audio and make sure you have the right codecs. The emergency E911 or emergency information, you can select any of your phone numbers on the account, and then the relevant address would, that if you have associated with that phone number, would show up here for the purposes of if I think this is Michael's phone. So if he calls 911 from his VoIP phone, the correct address would show up, but should be sent to emergency services. So that way they're going to the right place. The greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? Voicemail greetings, main greetings, hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add new greetings. You can give it a name. You click on browse to find the file on your computer, .wave.mp3 recorded in mono. And then you click on create greeting. Now, if you do that, you're not assigning it anywhere. It's just available that you can use it from the pull downs. Down here, you can see the name of a file, and then you have the source, right? So upload, you uploaded a file. TTS, text to speech. Recording means recorded over the phone. This play column here, right? You click on the little icon, that will play back the media file directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, then you can go to the download column here, download the file, and listen to it directly on your device. And then you click on the wrench icon to change the name of the file or delete it if you know it's no longer needed. Numbers shows your numbers. We start off in numbers in use, right? So basically shows where they're assigned. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911 or PPEN. The spare number tab shows the numbers you're not using. Now, if you want to actually remove a number from your account completely, then you would click on the box in front of a number. And then you have the option to delete up here. So that shows up only after you've checked the boxes. Click on delete, confirm the deletion, continue, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. All right, buying numbers, we'll just add new numbers to your spare number list. Again, you have the option for local or toll free. Port is moving a phone number, right? So if you want to move a number from Comcast to VirtualPBX, right, you would click on this, starts the port process. Click, give it a name, choose local or toll free. Then it wants you to upload a recent copy of your bill in PDF from Comcast in this case. And basically you're filling out a bunch of forms, right? They want the name on the account, the address that Comcast has on file. It wants the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, that's your BTN, right? If you're porting multiple, you probably have to talk to your current carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. Predominantly, that's the mobile carriers, but even some of the other carriers require that as well. One thing to keep in mind is if you're porting a cell phone number to us, the cell phone number that's associated with that cell phone number stop working once the port completes, right? Because the phone number now rings to your account, not to the cell phone device. The same would apply to a landline. Further in the process, it gives you the option to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA. That also needs to be filled out and signed. It should match the information that your current carrier has on file. And then you would upload the completed and signed version and then submit your documents. Toll-free numbers take about a week, right? 3 to 5 business days is the range, but almost always about a week. Local numbers can vary. We've seen some port in 1 day, but the average is 2 to 3 weeks. And that assumes nothing is wrong. If we get a rejection, we always double check to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side. Or if, let's say you had 2 addresses listed, right? One on your billing and one for the physical location, we try the other address, right? Just to make sure. But after all that, we would then communicate the rejection reason that we got, and that you would have to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information is needed to port out. All right, voicemail boxes. This shows your voicemail boxes on the account. If there's an entry in the user column, that means it was a voicemail box created when the user was created. Now, you can also create your own voicemail boxes up here. You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you click on Create a Voicemail Box. After that, you can click on the wrench icon here, click to Advanced, and Reading Media. This is where you would upload a media file. Now, the basic information here, right, you can use this, call into your main number, hit *97, enter the voicemail box number and the PIN number, and then you can record it over the phone if you want to do it that way. Right? Otherwise, you would upload a file. The media file is your normal message, right? The temporary is for your out of office or vacation message. So if you have something selected in temporary, it will play. Even if you have something so if you have something selected in both media file and temporary, the temporary file plays. The media file will not play until you set temporary back to none. Recipients. So the user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. If you want additional recipients, or for any voicemail box you created on this page, you'd want to click here where it says Add New Recipient, and then you enter the email address. You click Add to add another one, right? Once you're done, then you click on Save Changes. So once you've added a media file and a recipient list, then over here where it says Already Set Up, you can put a check mark there. Then you can verify if you're attaching messages and or if you want to delete after a notification, and then Save Changes. Call logs basically show your call history on the account. You have today, this week, this month, and custom. Little green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. When you click on it to expand it, you can see the devices that it was offered to. In this case, right here, you know that the call was answered on this specific device. It's also offered to the cell phone number, right? And lose race just means that they didn't pick up on this device, right? This other device picked up first. You have a little fire extinguisher icon here. If you click on that, it's going to create an email for you, pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to include the technical details of the call. Please type in context, i.e., why are you sending this in to us? We may understand why by the technical details, but often the time we don't. Like, for instance, we're not going to know that, oh, my phone didn't actually ring, right? I didn't hear the ringing sound from this information, or that you had bad audio quality. You can download these files. It's just a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a lot more out of it. The yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. You can expand and see the device that was used. Right, custom allows you to go back further in time. So like you can see all of April and then click filter. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go further than that, our engineering team can go back up to 18 months total. But after that, the data is no longer available. So if you need your call log data for any kind of compliance reasons, you would want to do this basically every month. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. So this allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. So you would start by clicking on Edit Blacklist over here on the far right. If you don't have a list in place, you would click on Add. Otherwise, you would just click on an existing list. So for a new list, you need to give it a name, and then you need to decide, are you blocking anonymous callers or not? Right, so an anonymous call means a call comes in and we're not getting valid caller ID. We're not getting a valid phone number. So if you're turning this on, that means they're blocked, right? If you turn it off, that means they're allowed through. Beyond that, you go down here where it says add number, you click there, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking add until you're done. Once you are done, then you will click save. You go back to settings, and then you make sure your list is on the right-hand side under selected, and then you click update. Faxes, oops. This goes to your fax manager. It's also included feature. It starts off on inbound faxes. So you can select the fax box. You can see the date and time of an inbound fax, the phone numbers involved. You can download the file here, the far right, and see details. The outbound fax tab, again, you select the fax box you want to work with. Right? You see the date and times of phone numbers involved, the number of pages. Now, if you see a failure here, that means we had a problem with the other phone number. It could be we couldn't connect at all, i.e. we got busy tone, or we connected initially, but something interrupted transmission. Like, so if you went to like a analog fax machine and someone picked up the handset as the fax is being transmitted for whatever reasons, that could cause a problem. The email to fax logs. This, if you see anything here, that means the system had a problem processing the request in general, right? We never made it to the calling out to the person. You click the little eyeball icon here, the far right, and you see in this case, no valid attachment. That could be the person didn't attach a file, or they just did not attach a PDF or a TIFF file. In some instances, it will tell you the file that they attached, but sometimes it doesn't. All right, number manager, takes you to your spare number page. Reports, this is a plan-specific feature, advanced reporting. If you look in our description link, there will be a link there for the advanced reporting demo. This allows you to create reports yourself, right? Custom reports. I would encourage you to take a look at that link in the description. And if you're interested, you would want to talk to our account services team. Voicemail Manager. This lets you get to any voicemail box on the account. You can see the messages, right? The date, the time, phone numbers involved, the duration. You can play back the greeting. You can, excuse me, sorry. You can download the message. Also, as an admin, if you click on the box, you can move a message to a different voicemail box if you want to. You can also change its status, right? So like if it's getting too full. SMS registration. This is for, that basically tells you what SMS registration is. It lets you start it, right? You click on the register button down there. And then register status lets you know the current status. One of the links in the description is for the SMS registration webinar, which we had about a month ago now. We have another one coming up for do's and don'ts of SMS compliance, and that is actually this Thursday. So you might want to check that out. Call center, this will open up a new tab and take you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. In the description, you'd want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo. Basically, queues are an advanced version of groups. You have more routing options like round robin, which will equalize out over time, or most idle, whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call. It also allows your staff members to log in and out of the queue or mark themselves away, so that way, they have control about what's going on with their status. Right? Like, I'm going to lunch. I mark myself away. My phones won't ring while I'm on lunch. You also have tools like a manager. They can eavesdrop in on a call, right? So they can make, for like training, they can also whisper to your staff member to help out. That's some of the advantages of the call center over groups. Dynamic caller ID is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So you would click on Create a New Rule. I'm going to edit an existing rule. So you give it a name, and then you select the phone number on the account from the pull down. And then in this case, I selected whenever my users dial the 408 area code, the system will automatically change their phone number, their outbound phone number, right, to the 669 phone number, right? 669 is an overlay for 408. Likewise, I did this other one here where I gave it a name. I chose this 323 number on my account, and my staff members need to dial *550, right? It's a feature code. Then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that combination, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right? So it looks like a local call. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? Whether they're on a call or not. On a test account, everyone's available. Right? You can also switch by devices, but you can see who's available and who's busy. Over here on the left, you have active inbound calls. They would each have a box and show who they're speaking to. Likewise, if someone was on a call, they would have a blue bar here, show who they're calling to. And then the parked calls, if you have any parked calls, it would show the phone number and the parking spot number. Recordings Manager, this will open up a new tab, take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. That uses your Dash login to log in, and you would see your recordings there. So you can download them, play them back, delete them, etc. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. This is programming, so it's quite a bit advanced. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team, but when you click on New Webhook, you basically fill out the form, create the webhook, and then you need something on the other end to link it to. In the description notes, I have a link for the Introduction to Zapier webinar that includes some webhooks. So you want to click on that. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then lastly, the user portal. So every user on your account has their own user portal. Right? It defaults them to their voicemail box so they can see their messages, right? The date, the time, they can play them back, they can download them. They can also choose to change the status. You can choose see your call history. You can also go back and then filter, right? See kind of calls you had. The fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box, but then they would see their own fax history. Contact list shows everything on the account, right? Other users, their extension numbers, groups, queues, auto attendant, etc. The conference tab, only really usable for users that you've enabled conferencing on. Over here on the right is where your staff members would change their PIN numbers, whether for themselves or for their participants. Excuse me. They also have the option to have people join muted or deafened, as well as to play entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, they can come to this page. The plus icon here, they can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock the conference so no one else can join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, each moderator and participant has their own little box under the relative headings. This allows a moderator to mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And then the settings and devices tab right here. This is where your staff members can enable call forwarding themselves. They just click on the box here, put in +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Again, if they have a cell phone device on their user, probably not necessary. And that is everything. I do apologize for the weird little ghost icons here. I'm not sure why that's happening. We'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we're basically here every Tuesday, except we will not be here on 4th of July, since that falls on a Tuesday. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and I will go ahead and end the stream.